They say need is the mother of all inventions, and it's certainly true when it comes to Punjabi music in the UK. The Asian people from the Indian subcontinent were really starved of music in the 60s and 70s, relying on people traveling from India to bring back LPs and tapes. The young men of Punjab now living in the UK blended Eastern music with their Western instruments, and bang, out came Bhangra music UK style. The style was first pioneered from Birmingham by the Inari Sangeet Party with their song Mere Lus Lus Karte Yang. And the new Bhangra sound was then further perfected by Alap and Hero groups from Southall, and many other bands followed. In the last 7 or 8 years, the sound of Bollywood is more of Bhangra beats than anything else, which must be a nice feeling for the pioneering musicians of the UK, which has changed the music of Bollywood. Let's have a close look at these pioneers.
By the late 1960s, Inari Sangeet Party had become so popular amongst the Asian population in the UK that they even released a 7-inch extended play vinyl record, which was played on jukeboxes in local pubs and working men clubs in Birmingham. As demand for live music grew, they became local stars and performed at social gatherings and wedding receptions. They became the benchmark for young and upcoming Bhangra artists such as Hero Group and Alap, who went on to sing their way into the nation's hearts. This popularity of Bhangra was not missed by Bollywood. This huge film industry started to use the Bhangra beats in their music and began churning hit after hit. Punjabi lyrics were generally ignored and replaced by Hindi and Urdu ones. By the late 70s, Bhangra music was reaching heights which was never seen before or even heard of. These songs will now and always will be evergreen. By the 80s and 90s, Punjabi lyrics were being used in Indian films and the public wanted more. Thus began the commercialization of Bhangra. Big blockbusters started to include at least one Punjabi number on their soundtrack, and in doing so they were not only making a blockbuster movie but were producing a super hit film soundtrack. Now Bhangra has undergone another change and has evolved into a fast-paced, racy number. These same beats and lyrics have been fused with both British and American music, along with other world music.
The bands I grew up listening to, particularly in the 80s, people like Hira, Alap, Premi, Apana Sangeet, and then going on to the early 90s is stuff like Achanak, Anamika, Shakti, people like that. They really influenced me as Bhangra bands.
Nightclubs play this music to fill their dance floors, and this music has even made it into the leading music charts, both here and across the Atlantic. Beginning as a form of lively folk music performed at harvests in the Punjab, Bhangra has evolved remarkably over the years. The music now fully represents the culture of the Punjab region and the struggles of its people in their long and glorious history. Moreover, the music still changes with time and incorporates elements of many different kinds of music from around the world, while still existing in its traditional form. Thanks to this diversification, Bhangra now reaches a larger audience than ever, all over the world. And all this from just celebrating this harvest somewhere in Punjab.
The saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, certainly comes to mind when it comes to Asian students in the UK. The stark fact of the matter is that plight of the foreign students in the UK is not a very promising one. Despite better opportunities being available in India and Pakistan, people still come to the UK and undergo such humiliation and sufferance to better their lives, or so they think. Let's see this report, but just before that, the reality is that an awful lot of students who get student visas, they actually are really here for economic reasons, and they actually find low-paid jobs and trying to continue their education, and at the same time paying their living expenses and maybe pay off the loans which they have taken to come to the UK in the first place. Let's have a closer look at this.
23-year-old Jaydeep is a business administration student from India. He arrived in the UK about a year ago with high hopes of getting an MBA and qualifying for some work experience after the completion of his course. Jaydeep had high aspirations, and to be able to study in England was a major step in achieving his life's goals. But a few months on, everything has turned sour and has become a living nightmare for him. He is struggling with life in the UK as a student. He cannot get a full-time job as per his visa requirements and can only work a certain amount of hours a week, hence a part-time job. But part-time jobs are few and far between and not very well paid.
I work in London here in a noon factory. I work there 20 hours.
And do you work in the holidays?
In holidays we work 40 hours.
And that helps financially?
It's financially very difficult. In 20 hours we get a very small amount of money, and rent for living and the traveling expenses are so high. So it's very difficult to manage.
Jaydeep's plight is just one of many. You will find many a foreign student, particularly from the subcontinent, who are in the same boat. And to make matters worse, Britain is in the throes of a recession, and finding employment as an international student is extremely difficult. Prospective employers are putting British people, followed by EU nationals, first, and who can blame them, as Britain's own unemployment is so high. These students have now become desperate, and in their despair they are resorting to extreme measures. Some work illegally where they may be prone to serious underpay. Some share houses with up to 10 to 15 people. The situation has become so bad that some students have become suicidal. On further investigation by Sunrise Television, we have found that a group of girls are considering prostitution. However, none of them are willing to admit this on camera. Despite these ongoing hardships, the demand for a student visa to the UK is extremely high compared to other countries like Canada, Australia or Germany. A recent report suggested that the UK had about 186,000 international students since 2004, and by 2009, 20% of this figure was still here. A good reason as to why these figures are so high is the boom of the international colleges. A bogus organisation sets up a college and offers courses with the relevant visas for, sometimes, an exorbitant fee. These fees are met with people staking their life savings and or borrowing the money. It is a total money-making scheme where the process of education does not have any importance. By the time a bona fide student realises this, it is too late and his fees are non-refundable.
We've had bogus colleges up until 2008. There's been a lot of them, but then we introduced the licensing system. When we introduced the licensing system, then obviously the ones which operated, they just operated without following any rules and regulations. They started, fading away. Because with the licensing system, you have to strictly comply with the procedures. There are reporting procedures and all that. There are procedures for every single thing that you do, from recruiting a student to completing a course and everything in between.
The Conservatives were of the opinion that there should be a cap on the number of student visas issued. The present ruling party has ruled for a temporary cap on not only student but general immigration of non-EU members. A permanent cap is to be brought about later this year.
We all benefit from our membership of the European Union, and one of the basic good things about the European Union, there are many bad things, but one of the basic good things is the free movement of people. So you don't want to apply restrictions to that. What you want overall for the rest of the world is a fair immigration system, so that we let in a steady stream of people who will benefit this country. We want more than our fair share of the brightest and the best, but that's not the same as saying anyone who applies can come here. Every country sensibly needs to have controls on the numbers of people coming.
The UK Border Agency is working under strict instructions from the Immigration Office to tackle the problem of students whose visas have expired and still remain in the country illegally. They have powers to raid any suspected premises and can do so at a moment's notice. Despite better opportunities being available in one's homeland, students still flock to the UK and undergo humiliation and sufferance to better their lives, or so they think. Until these people are actually made aware of these facts, not only made aware, but actually realise the issues that face them, things will probably remain the same.
Now let's have a look at the other news in the week. A compensation for Guantanamo prisoners. The UK government has paid compensation to 16 men who were detained by the US forces in the camp in Cuba, I understand. The government said the settlement was confidential but necessary to avoid a legal battle which could have cost up to £50 million. The Indian High Commissioner hosted a dinner party at the RAJMEHTANEWS Club in Osterley celebrating Diwali and Eid. He thought it would be nice for these separate religious functions to be celebrated together with the Indian community. The function was attended by about 300 people. And there was also a Diwali celebration at 10 Downing Street this week. The Prime Minister hosted the party for about 100 guests, which included me, and I can't imagine why, along with a number of Lords, MPs and Asian community leaders. Well, that's the programme for today. I look forward to joining you next Monday from 7 to 7:30. Bye-bye.